Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Short and sweet, you guys have been asking me on almost every platform why I haven't shared more videos in my job search, updates, and to be completely honest, I didn't share, interviews, applications very much on this channel just because I think in this day and age of sharing so much on social media, we show, all the highlights and the accolades and the good times. You don't see the late night applications, the waiting for phone calls, the waiting in the HR office. Like, you don't see that stuff, and the idea of sharing it with you over and over and over again with the idea of rejection or it didn't work out, like, it was just a little wearing on me. But you guys were very encouraging with it, and I took a day and I said, if I can make videos about auditioning for musicals and hearing no for any reason under the sun, I can share applications, job interviews. So today I wanted to share one that is very, very near and dear to my heart. I don't think I've ever talked about this on this channel, and I figure if I'm going to share all the bumps along the road during this chapter in life, I should share one that is more of a bittersweet and kind of a harder rejection than any of the other ones that I've actually encountered this year. First off, if you are watching this and you are not subscribed, click that little red subscription button and the bell down below. I will be sharing many more videos about my current job search. If you missed the life update a few months ago, I'll link it right up above in the card. Anyway, let's get started. I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason, so if something doesn't come to you at one point in your life, there's no guarantee that it might not come to you in the next chapter. Of all my recent job searching applications and interviews, this is the one that actually goes back a little bit further than 2018. In fact, the initial application for this job started back in spring of 2011. I was finishing up graduate school, kind of figuring out my next chapter. I was also like 2 months away from auditioning for cruise ships, but I didn't know that was happening yet. And there was a big poster in my graduate program that said, auditions and interviews, nationwide search for a soprano in the armed forces. It was a music group with the Air Force. There are a few of them. I won't list which one here on this video, but there was just a nationwide search. Anybody who was a soprano who could pass a music theory, history, written test, do their sight reading and their normal singing audition process could come and interview. Anyone who was a US citizen was free to apply, and they were gonna pick their top 15 and have them fly to DC for the final interview. And I thought to myself, I have nothing to lose. It kind of sounded exciting, like singing jobs that have unbelievable healthcare, insurance, pension, all of that stuff, and more money than I ever thought you could make as a singer. So I go on the Air Force website, I see everything that I need to apply for the job. I had to make 3 different vocal tracks singing different styles of music. I think I did a jazz, a musical theater, and an opera. And I sent in a resume, a cover letter, a background check, passport, driver's license, pretty much everything they could have ever wanted of me. And 2 weeks later, again still in spring of 2011, I got a phone call from one of the directors that was running these auditions. They called, verified it was me, I had applied. She asked me a few different interview questions and said they would be in touch very soon. Within a week of that phone call, I had received an actual invitation as a finalist in their nationwide search to fly to Washington, DC, do their auditions, their written exam, and then their face-to-face interview with the head of the Air Force Music Programs Director. And at this point, I was like freaking out. I had never done this before, very new to the job market, had just come from 6 years of college, 4 bachelors, 2 masters. I knew nothing, but I was so excited. I flew down there, I did the interview, I did the singing, I did all of that stuff with the top 15 girls, and I did not make it past the top 10. And I was kind of bummed, but it was really just a fun experience, which was fine for me because, and everything happens for a reason, it's what led me to go to New York for 2 weeks, which led me to working on cruise ships for several years. And it was actually while on cruise ships, fast forward from 2011 to 15, I saw another posting for the same group for a soprano position in the Air Force Band. Now that I knew how the drill was going to go, I knew what was expected of me, I knew what they were going to ask of me, I knew how to dress, I knew how to interview. Nonetheless, I knew what they were going to ask of me this time because it was the same process, it was the same application, the same schedule. So needless to say, I sent in 3 fresh recordings, everything they wanted, and they called me back again. And now again, this is application and round 2 of attempting to get this job, and it is spring 2014. My sister actually lived just outside of Washington, D.C. at this point in time, so I went and I stayed with her. I went in and I auditioned again. This time I made it into the top 5. And it was awkward enough sitting in this room with 10 girls in the top 10. We had already sang, we had to do a written music test. There was just a lot of stuff thrown at us very quickly. But if you made it to the top 5, you got to stay an extra day and sing with the group, do a tour of the base, like you got to see everything. But once again, just like in 2011, I did not make it into the top 5. Made it in the top 10, not the top 5. So went home, signed myself up with Carnival, got myself on the Carnival Freedom, and just, you know, enjoyed the nice winter in the Caribbean. No sweat off my back. I figured if nothing else, this is a really good experience. And then my third and final time of finding that posting. I think I'd got it in an email because I had already interviewed with them and made it to the top 10. I got another email that said, hey, we're looking for another singer in a group here in the Air Force. And just like the first and second time, I knew what to do. I sent in my recordings, my applications, and I said, okay, it's 2015, I can do this, I know what's expected of me. I did it in 2011, I did it in 2014, this is 2015, I'm fresh off a cruise ship. I had literally gotten off the Carnival Freedom like 10 days prior to their auditions, and they accepted my initial application. I got my invitation to go on to the Air Force Base. I was ready to go. I went into, I think, a Kinko's Copies, and I printed off all of my sheet music, my headshots, my resumes, cover letters, everything they needed. I threw it into nice organized manila envelopes. Like, I was ready to go. During this audition, I actually had Instagram at this time. I was really late to the Instagram game, but I did have pictures of me laying out my clothes. I'll show it here on the screen if you want to see. I was so excited and so ready to go. And then during our lunch break, I explored a little bit of downtown DC, and I posted this picture of me basically hanging out with Barack Obama, but it's cool. Anyway, the audition went great, mainly because I knew what was expected of me. The test always changed, but I had an idea of what kind of music they wanted to hear in the auditions. Something always brings me back to you. I knew what kind of questions were going to get thrown at me in the face-to-face interview, so I passed the written test, I sang the audition, and I did my face-to-face interview. And it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm sitting in a room with the other 10 girls. We had all made it to top 10 through our singing and our tests. We're sitting in this tiny glass room with like the long conference room table, and no one is talking. There are girls there from all over the US. I think one girl had actually left her honeymoon early and flown from California because she wanted this job so bad. I remember sitting with her before the singing portion of this, and she barely talked, but I try to speak to people in auditions or interviews because it just helps break the ice, and you're there anyway, and it just, at least for me, it makes me feel better to know that I'm not the only one who feels this pit in their stomach and this super bout of nervousness and tension in the room. At 3:30, a woman comes in. I think she's the assistant to the director. She's got her clipboard, so you know what's coming. Every girl looks up. We've been in this room for a half hour of complete and utter silence, awkward silence. And she said, okay, I'm gonna read off these top 5 girls. You're gonna stay for one more audition, and then by the end of the night, we're gonna have our top 3. And she reads off the top 5 girls, and I am one of them. So I was freaking out. I used to do pageants, and I would just sit there when they were calling out like names or states. This time I was thinking, please call number 3. Please call number 3, because that was my number and I wanted nothing more than to hear it. I had never gotten into the top 5 before. I wouldn't know what they were expecting of me in the top 5, but I heard my name. The woman stayed in the room a few minutes after the numbers were called. She had the top 5 girls leave the room so those that were not called could quietly and peacefully leave without causing any scenes or anything. I don't know if they've had an issue in the past with that, but this woman stayed in the room with us, escorted the top 5 out, and let the other 5 pack up and head back home. So she walks us down the hallway, and we see that we're going back into the room where we initially did our singing. I can see the pianist in the window, and I can see the panel of judges who were watching us the first time. She hands us a piece of music and says, you guys are going to sight read this. Sight reading, super fun, but super stressful in an audition situation. It immediately gets like quiet in this room. We're all given 5 minutes to look over this piece of music. We walk into the room one at a time. The pianist plays us our starting pitch, and we can pick our own speed, but we have to sit there and sight read a piece of music for the judges. I'm the second person to go because they called back number 1 and then me number 3. Number 1 goes in, she reads hers. It's in a different key than mine, so there's no like advantage to going 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th because they're all in different keys and they're all different little tunes. I go in and I read mine, and then the other 3 girls read theirs. They sit in their room and talk for a few minutes more, and then the woman with the clipboard comes out again. She said, I have 3 names here. Those 3, we'd like you to come back tomorrow. You'll have breakfast with the group. You'll rehearse with them for the day, see how your voice blends in with theirs, and we will take it from there and choose our candidate by the end of the day tomorrow. And she calls numbers. I remember these numbers. She called numbers 3, 6, and 8 of the top 15, because you keep your same number. And I remember just sitting there thinking, oh my God, I've made it through the nationwide search, into the top 15, top 10, the top 5. This really does sound like a pageant, but I promise you this is just how they narrowed it down and how they did their auditions. I should also mention, and I should have said this before, I actually had a journalist from the Air Force follow me because they knew that I had done this multiple times. I was like the girl that wouldn't give up. So they had a journalist follow me around and ask me questions. They took my picture. I will actually have his published article linked down below. He wrote up a really great article from when I did this in 2015. Anyway, the next day came, I got up early, I met this group of like 18 to 20 phenomenal singers. Like their full-time job is singing, touring, and traveling. This is the group you usually see from the Air Force singing at the Super Bowl. Like this is big stuff. And they live their lives in DC. They have families, they have spouses, they have everything, but their 9 to 5 is coming to rehearsal 9 a.m. to noon, and then their afternoons are their performances, more rehearsal. It just kind of depends on the week. I got to have breakfast with them. They sat down and talked to the 3 of us. We got to sing with them so they could see how our voices blended into the group, and it was a lovely experience. I remember leaving it, and I took my sister to a Beyonce concert after because it was her birthday gift. We came home, fell asleep, and the next morning I got my phone call saying that they had gone with another soprano of the top 3. They thanked me for my time. They're like, we know you've done this 3 times, you know, stay in touch, all that jazz. Whew, this is like the longest story. I promise you there's a point to this. Fast forward 3 years later. So cruise ships, buy a house, start dating Christopher, do all my shows, start a YouTube channel later. I get an email from the director of this group. I actually remember the exact date. It was March 27th, 2018. I hadn't spoken to them in 3 years, so I was kind of taken aback. They remembered, you know, my name, all my information. I'm sure it's on record, but for somebody to take the time to remember, you came in 2011, 14, and 15, it was just really nice, and it was a gesture I wasn't used to. Anyway, he wrote to me and said, we've had a last-minute vacancy come into play, and before we do a nationwide search again, we want to offer you this job. This is not something you expect to see with your morning coffee 3 years after the audition. In the world of acting, singing, or just the arts or show business, this sort of thing does not happen. It is not something you see. You don't go and audition for something, hear a no, and then 3 years later, hear a, we would love to have you. Here's a job on a silver platter. It is yours. And I remember reading it and thinking, this could not have come at a worse time. So the date was March 27th, 2018, and it was because it was literally 3 days after Christopher and I got engaged that this came about. And I know I played up this job to be like the greatest of all time, so you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, why would you turn this down? Why wouldn't you take this? The short version of it is there are a lot more requirements now that you have to agree to before joining. That might be the reason why this particular soprano left. I can't say, they didn't tell me, and I know that I can't say the specifics as to what they would require of somebody entering that group now. Just know that I had purchased my house a year ago. I had just gotten engaged. Christopher just has his job now. The big reason on my end is the cost of living in Washington, D.C. is a whole lot more than it is here. They do give housing assistance, but it's still very, very expensive. And to turn around and uproot your life, especially for the circumstances that I cannot mention here on this video, it would have just been really stressful. So it took all of me. I think I took a few hours to kind of sit down and process this, because it's kind of weird to see the job you wanted 7 years ago, the job you would have given anything to have 7 years ago, offered to you in 2018 at a time that it really isn't valuable for you to take it. But I did take some time, reflect. I drafted out an email. I also called my fiance and my mom. It was like, this happened. And I sent screenshots of the email to all of them and my sister, because she was very invested in this. She always housed me when I flew to DC. And I showed them the email and they all agreed that it just wasn't the right time. It wasn't, you know, in the cards. If I'm really honest, it felt really good to be remembered, especially for all the hard work and the times you took time out of your schedule to fly to DC on your own budget, mind you. I don't think I mentioned that. I had to pay for myself to fly out there. It was just nice to be, you know, thought of, and the fact that they would offer this to me. I'm sure because I was in the top 3 the last time they even had an opening, they may have some lenience to not have to open a nationwide search. I never actually saw a nationwide search go out. I'm just going to safely assume the other girl in the top 3 probably jumped on that opportunity, and if she did, congratulations to her. And I know she follows me here on social media, so if you see this and you did take this, girl, congratulations. That is such an amazing accomplishment, especially, you know, waiting out for 3 years. Once again, it feels really nice. It was a really hard pill to swallow, especially given the circumstances of, you know, I lost my job. And the mantra that everything happens for a reason, I started to think, wait, I lost my job a few weeks ago. I have nothing to lose. Why wouldn't I take this? Kept running through my head. And then I would have to sit down and think of the logistics, things I wanted from their end, things on my end. And really, once again, it really wasn't the right time, but it was encouragement to always go out, do your best. Even if you fall down 8 times, you stand up 9, you do the best that you can, and you never know. Years later, somebody could offer you the job you wanted. Anyway, that is the hardest rejection I've had to turn down. I'm sorry it took so long in a story time type of video to explain it to you, but I figure if I just sat down and said, hey, the Air Force called and offered me a job, you guys would have been like, what? So I wanted to back up and share the story of how I applied in 2011, 2014, and 2015. All 3 of those, no, but waited patiently 3 more years and got the offer in 2018. No audition, no application. They probably were tired of seeing my application, to be completely honest, but anyway, that is the story of my hardest rejection to date, especially this year. I have a few other videos coming up in the future that do talk more about different kinds of interviews. My most awkward interview that I just took a few weeks ago that ended up in an intern asking for my phone number, which was very, very awkward. But just updates on the job search, job market, and I hope to see you guys then. If you guys like these sort of videos, let me know by giving this one a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button. Have a great day. Believe that everything happens for a reason and that every day something amazing can happen. Why am I becoming a walking Pinterest board? I have no idea. I am going to go outside and enjoy the sunshine, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.